Welcome to Eye on Horror, the official podcast of iHorror.com. This is episode 156, otherwise known as Season 8, episode 16. I am your host, James J. Edwards, and with me, as always, is your other host, Jacob Davidson. How you doing, Jacob?
Doing all right. Just back on the West Coast after my trip to New England.
And now your mom's on the West Coast, didn't she?
Oh, yeah. Going to be visiting
Followed
her.
you out here.
Yeah.
Also with us, as always, is your other host, John Correia. How you doing, Correia?
Doing pretty good. We got a new cat.
Priscilla Presley, something Queen of the Desert.
Okay, so her name is Priscilla. Her full government name, though, is Priscilla Presley Chambers, Queen of the Dessert.
Queen of the Dessert. Okay,
because she's a stonky. She's stonky.
Loomis's full government name is Dr. Samuel William Loomis. He's a doctor.
Yeah, we were mascot of the show, and my old roommate Black Phillip passed in October, so there's been a bit of a void, but it's been cool because she was really skittish at first, so it's been really fun seeing her personality come out in the last week, and it turns out she's 100% a goober. She's just dumb and has ADHD worse than I, so it's great. We get along.
Sounds like a match made in heaven.
I tell you, Loomis is going to be really upset to realize that he was not the mascot of the show, because for the past 5 years he's thought that he is.
No, he is too. You can have multiple mascots.
Okay, because Greta wants to be a mascot too.
Yeah, all our pets are mascots.
What's been going on? The only new thing I think that's come out recently is Five Nights at Freddy 2. Have either of you guys seen Five Nights at Freddy 2?
I haven't seen the new one. I did see the original, though.
Yeah, the new one, I wasn't as big of a fan. The first one I did like. It was fun. The new one is basically the gist is the location of Freddy Fazbear's that was from the first one was not the original location. It was a franchise. So the original location is even more haunted, and all of the animatronics are controlled by a mysterious entity known as the Marionette. And that's where it kind of lies. The Marionette is not, it's not as much fun as just having these crazy, having them be controlled by a master entity is just not as much fun, I guess. But it is kind of cool because Matthew Lillard is in it, kind of in like flashback scenes, and Skeet Ulrich is in it, and they don't share they don't share any screen time because Skeet Ulrich plays the parent of one of these kids that went missing. But it is kind of fun to see like a little mini Scream reunion, even though they're never on screen at the same time. But it's a pretty it's a pretty seamless sequel. I mean, the whole band is back together. The writer is the guy who created the video games. The director is the same woman who did the first one, and the cast, Josh Hutcherson and I forget her name, but the little girl and the cop. They're
McKenna Grace.
No, McKenna Grace plays she plays like the leader of like a kind of a of like a YouTube channel kind of a thing that like a Spectre detector kind of a thing.
Oh, like Urban Explorers.
Yeah, well, kind of, but it's sort of like, what are they called in Shelby Oaks?
I think the Spectre detectors.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
What paranormal?
Yes. Yeah.
What was it? Paranormal
Paranoids.
Paranoids, yes.
It was. I remember it being like a really cheesy early YouTube name. Like they really nailed that name.
McKenna Grace plays like the leader of one of those, and they're investigating one of the things. So she has it's a small but pivotal role in the movie. But yeah, the little girl's name is Piper Rubio. And then Elizabeth Lale is the woman who plays the cop, and they're all back from the first one. So I mean, it's pretty. The continuity is there, but it's not as much fun as and I mean, you've got these, I don't know. It opens up the world a little bit because the Five Nights at Freddy the animatronics go like tromping around the city, and it's it's not as much fun. It does have a lot of callbacks to the because it's basically an adaptation of the second game.
Right, right.
Gotcha.
So there are callbacks to that. Like at one point, he's doing something on a computer, and one of the animatronics comes in the room, so he grabs like a mask and puts it in front of his face, and because that's one of the things you do in the video game to avoid detection is you wear masks, and you can tell the screening I was at had a lot of influencers, Five Nights at Freddy's influencers there, and you could tell, and I didn't get them all because whenever something like that happened, they would all cheer and clap. And there's a lot of cheering and clapping that I didn't quite know what they were cheering and clapping for. Like a character would show up or something, and I'd be like, okay, this was made for fans of the video game. This is not, this wasn't made for me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't quite get all the in jokes. So I think it's more, if you're a fan of the video game, you'll be into it.
It's like when Lindsay and I were watching the Street Fighter trailer that just dropped for the new one, and at the end of the trailer they show someone punching a car and like breaking and kicking off a bumper, and I lost it. And Lindsay's like, "Why are you flipping out over that one shot?" I'm like, "Because that's the best part of Street Fighter 2 is beating up the car, and they did it in the movie."
Yeah. And I will say, when I saw the first Five Nights at Freddy's movie, like there was a bunch of younger people there, and they were all talking and on their phones before the movie. But when that movie started, they were locked in, like they're dead quiet, like they were focused on the screen. So like this is for their generation.
Yeah.
Yep. And they all showed up in cosplay, at this thing, so it's definitely made for a specific audience. Other than that, there's not. I've been buried in trying to catch up for awards voting. So I mean, I've been seeing a bunch of stuff like Train Dreams and Jay Kelly and Marty Supreme was last night's viewing. None of which is even remotely horror. Although Marty Supreme does have one horrific scene. It's one of the Safdies. And there is one horrific scene where basically a dude's arm gets broken in half, and you're like,
Jesus.
Yeah, you're like, ooh, okay, that came out of nowhere. But yeah, not a whole lot has happened. What about you guys?
Well, it's funny. I did see Jay Kelly back on the East Coast with my dad. That was really good. But yeah, not horror. But yeah, not a lot of other big horror releases, although kind of, I guess, in that realm, since it's like a murder mystery movie. I did see the new Knives Out movie, Wake Up Dead Man, back on the East Coast at the Coolidge Corner Theater, and I really dug it. It was very interesting, kind of framing the death and the mystery around a church, which in some ways kind of gave me more Giallo vibes too. On top of that, since like Giallo was originally rooted in Agatha Christie and pulp murder mystery novels. Yeah, plus I can't get enough of Daniel Craig and his amazing accent as Benoit Blanc.
Those Knives Out movies, they're all kind of Agatha Christie-ish,
Oh yeah,
very much.
I mean, this one they really lean into it to the point where they discuss the books in the movie. and that aside, this is kind of funny. Just I saw Zootopia 2 because I heard a lot of good things about it, and it has a surprising number of horror homages. Like without spoiling too much, there is an extended Shining parody where like they're in a hedge maze with the snow, and this is interesting because the news came out after. They have a small Silence of the Lambs parody at one point, and originally it was going to be a few minutes long and like with direct dialogue from Silence of the Lambs, but they cut it down because they were afraid that people wouldn't understand the reference, which honestly I think is a huge disappointment because it would have involved Jenny Slate's character from the first film. So we did not get Jenny Slate doing a Hannibal Lecter impression, and just again missed opportunity.
I only saw the first Zootopia. I haven't seen the second one, but I just miss the days when Disney would make like animal movies and it wasn't propaganda, like remember Robin Hood when we would use cool foxes to like promote like fighting the system, not being a part of it. That was
Yeah, Zootopia 2 is it got nominated in the San Diego Film Critics Society for animated, so I do need to watch it. But you know what else got nominated? Predator, Killer of Killers. So
Yes. Thank God.
I'm pretty sure that's where my vote is going to go. Although also nominated K-pop Demon Hunters. So I did watch that, and that I tell you is that's just so much fun.
I still haven't seen it, but I worked a shift at Amoeba and we played the soundtrack, and it was really funny to be like at the register and all of a sudden being like, "Is this K-pop? I don't know." And then all of a sudden Golden started going. I'm like, "Oh, I know that song. Okay, yep, that's it."
It's funny because it's all K-pop music, but then when you put it with the visuals of basically these hunters fighting these demons,
Oh yeah.
it's a lot of fun.
There's a bit of a horror element in there because they're fighting demons, but it is just amazing how much of a smash success it is. Like I think I'd mentioned before, like when I was walking around the neighborhood on Halloween, like there were dozens of kids dressed up as K-pop Demon Hunter characters, and I'm glad I was able to actually see it in theaters because yeah, I mean I caught it on Netflix because Sony sold the movie to Netflix, and then it turned into this gigantic hit to the point where they have put it in theaters a couple times, and I think it's going to be back in theaters again at some point.
There's a sing-along version on Netflix so it's catching on.
And for the theater version, like I went there and a bunch of people were singing along with the movie.
Yeah.
That's how much people are into this.
I hope that it was a sing-along screening because that could be annoying if you're not prepared for
it.
Right. Another awards thing that's kind of horror adjacent is have you guys heard of Die My Love?
No.
It's the new Lynn Ramsey movie with Jennifer Lawrence and Robert Pattinson.
Yeah.
It has a lot of we need to talk about Kevin vibes, except instead of Kevin being the one that's crazy, it's the Jennifer Lawrence character. She's like, this has been a year for postpartum, and kid related trauma movies because there was If I Had Legs I'd Kick You, which is Rose Byrne is amazing in it, and also Hamnet with Jessie Buckley is deals with a little bit of that too. But this one it's kind of a dark movie, and it's total Lynn Ramsey style. It's real disjointed, and you're kind of wondering, okay, wait, is this a flashback or is this happening now? That kind of thing. The performances, Robert Pattinson and Jennifer Lawrence are both amazing, but it's basically about this couple who have this kid, and the woman, which is Jennifer Lawrence, she kind of goes crazy, and part of it is gaslighting, where people are convincing her she's crazy, but part of it is she really is crazy, and that's where the line you're kind of like, wait, now is she legitimately, does she legitimately need help, or is someone doing this to her? I don't know. It's kind of crazy, but it's a dark movie. It's a really dark movie.
It sounds dark.
Yep. It's Lynn Ramsey. That's what she does.
Well, have you guys ever heard of the series Rebel Highway?
No.
Yeah, Correia's back on his bullshit of obscure 90s anthologies.
Oh boy.
Rebel Highway was this anthology film series on Showtime where they took, I think it was I want to say it was Corman drive-ins, but it was these like drive-in movies that they had all the rights to, and they would remake them with modern filmmakers of the 90s. And they're all like greaser head, car, kid bopping ones. It's the only one that's gotten an official release is Robert Rodriguez's Road Racers, which is probably hands down the best made one. That one has David Arquette, Selma Hayek, John Hawkes, William Sadler, and it's, typical greaser racer, and it's Robert Rodriguez going nuts, and he's still in his like super guerrilla filmmaking style with a premium cable episode budget. But they're a lot of fun because they some of them are straight up remakes of these movies, and some of them are just in name only. Ralph Bakshi did one as well called Cool and Crazy, talk about postpartum depression. That one has Silverstone stepping out on her husband, played by Jared Leto. They're both like 19-year-old couple that like settled hard, had a kid, and then she steps out with this like gang member or real just bad guy, played by Matthew Flint, but also John Hawkes is in it, Jennifer Blanc. Like the casts are really good, and the directors, it's cool stuff. Like that's Ralph Bakshi's only like fully live action film. But yeah, they're a fun series. There's like 10 movies within it, and you can find it on like Internet Archive. Oh yeah, let's plug it. Yeah, you can find it on Internet Archive because it's not available anywhere else. But Rebel Road Racers did get a Blu-ray and DVD release at one point, and that's the best one. But there's titles like Girls in Prison, Shake, Rattle, and Rock, Drag Strip Girl, Motorcycle Gang, Runaway Daughters, Reform School Girl. So like they're all like, classy titles, but it's definitely that like 1950s, 1960s teen drive-in films, but like made in the 90s. So they're fun to watch, especially Cool and Crazy. That one, Alicia Silverstone was just like going so over the top, and there's some like weird psychosexual stuff going on in there. And Jared Leto it's like, oh, this is before he got creepy and ruined franchises like Tron. Seek them out, dude. They're a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun trying to hunt down all these like anthology series that were like Tales from the Crypt or something like that came out in the 90s. I'm still trying to find a watchable copy of the Western one spinoff from Tales from the Crypt, Two-Fisted
Tales.
Two-Fisted Tales. Yeah, I'm trying to find that pilot. I know it got it got split up and turned into episodes of Tales, but
yeah, no, it's out there somewhere. I've seen it with like William Sadler being kind of the Crypt Keeper guy.
Yeah, I gotta hunt that one down.
Have you ever watched The Hitchhiker from the old HBO days? This was like pre Tales from the Crypt HBO, like maybe 81.
I've had a DVD collection of that for the longest time, and it's in my need to watch to possibly sell pile right now. So
you should watch it. They're pretty good.
Yeah, no. I have so many Blu-rays. I have stacks right next to me of just like stuff where it's like, you gotta watch this to either clear space or give it a permanent space on the shelf. Just gotta.
I feel that. Never enough room.
And now let's bring in our special guest for this episode. And this is a really special guest. We have a true multi-hyphenate. We've got film writer, producer, director, founder of the Miskatonic Institute, Kier-La Janisse. How you doing?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. We always like to kind of start with at the beginning. How did you get your start doing what you do, and when did you know that you wanted to work in horror like this?
Well, I mean, I was a horror fan from being a small child. It was my first thing that my parents or family members knew about me was that I loved monsters and ghosts and things like this. And so they would encourage it. We would watch horror films at home, and my dad would buy me any book he saw at a flea market about horror movies. So it was really kind of ingrained in me from a young age. But I didn't know that I would work in the field because I didn't really want to make movies. And so I didn't know that there were all these other potential jobs that you could do if you work in horror, like these support jobs, that you could be a journalist or you could be an archivist or, any of these things. And so I just went to school for normal things like medieval history, which was also useless. But it was when I was in university doing medieval history, I started like a little fanzine, like a horror fanzine out of the video store where I worked. And that fanzine was really what started me programming movies, because I would review movies like bootlegs and stuff that I had bought from like European Trash Cinema or Video Vortex or, Revic or any of these, organizations that sold bootlegs, Video Search of Miami. And I would review the movies, but they weren't available in Canada for people to rent. So people would read the reviews and be like, well, this movie sounds really interesting, but how can we see the movie? And in Canada, because of the way that our rating systems work, you can't just import any movie and put it on the shelf of a video store. Everything has to go through government channels. And so there isn't a lot of independent free movement of films the way there is in the States. But one thing you could do is you could put on a film festival and you could get an exemption from film ratings at a film festival. And so that was sort of how I started. I started programming these weird, Italian horror films and stuff for a film festival locally. And this was like back, it was before DVD existed, and people, like, I remember the first year I played, like, Deep Red, Dario, it was all just kind of stuff that now we consider greatest hits. It was like Lizard in a Woman's Skin by Lucio Fulci, Deep Red, Possession by Andrei Zhawowski. And people hated Possession. Back then, people did not like that movie the way that they do now. But yeah, people didn't even know who Dario Argento was. It was really only the people who collected that knew, who a lot of these filmmakers were. And so, because of doing that festival and doing the fanzine, Tony Timpone at Fangoria offered me my first paid job doing anything for horror, which was doing set visits. I lived in Vancouver, and they were always shooting different horror franchises and stuff out there. So he asked if I would go out to visit some sets and do some coverage for them. And that was really how my career started, because that was the first thing that I got paid to do in horror. And so it just kind of went from there.
That's awesome. I mean, I know Jacob and I definitely have a lot of your books on our shelves. House of Psychotic Women, Satanic Panic. That was my first introduction to your work. And God, I love that you keep encouraging such people to discover new films or that from the past, or films that people don't talk a whole lot about. Like, you have an entire book dedicated to Cockfight, which is incredible.
Yeah. Well, Cockfighter was like the
Cockfighter, yeah.
That was the book is called Cockfight.
Yeah.
But just because I thought I should have given it a more original title, but I just thought it would be funny to be on a shelf with my name and it just says Cockfight. But anyways, that was, an obsession with Monty Hellman's movie Cockfighter, which seems to many people very different from a lot of the other things that I've written about. Like my only solo book before that, or the one right before that, was House of Psychotic Women. And it seems a million miles away from House of Psychotic Women in terms of content and taste and everything, but like any film fan, if your interest and your curiosity about films and your taste is not always following a straight line, and yeah, so Cockfighter was one of those things that, to me, when I made the book, I didn't expect it to be as obscure as it was. Like, I actually thought everybody's seen Cockfighter. But turns out it's not the case. And a lot of people don't want to see Cockfighter. As I found when I wanted to do book launch events, it was hard to convince people to play the movie. So, yeah.
A bit of a hard sell on cockfighting.
Yeah.
Well, it's a fictional movie about it. It's not like you're not promoting the illegal sport at all. So
no, well, I talk about the sport quite a bit in the book, and the movie does have real cockfighting in it. So
yeah,
there's kind of no way around that, because it's like chickens can't be trained the same way that other animals can't, so it's like a lot of the fights, they made fake, like, they're called gaffs, which are like the hooks that they fight with. So they made rubber ones for the film, but they are actually charging at each other. They are, as far as the birds are concerned, they are actually fighting. It's just that they can't kill each other because they've got rubber gaffs on.
Right.
But the anger is still there. And that's part of the reason why in the UK, the film can't be played, because one of the sort of federal rules, and this has nothing to do with motion picture ratings, it's just one of the federal rules, is that you cannot show a film where an animal is goaded to fury. So you cannot show someone angering an animal to the point where they want to kill. And so it's like a really specific law that was made because of things like cockfighting. Because cockfighting used to be a very popular sport in the UK. So,
wow. Too bad they didn't have Werner Herzog on set to hypnotize him, famous clip of him hypnotizing chickens.
Yeah.
And off of that, I also want to say I'm a big fan of your folk horror work, particularly the documentary Woodlands, Dark and Days Bewitched, History of Folk Horror, and your involvement in the folk horror box sets from Severin. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean the box sets kind of came. The idea for them came right as we were making the film, because my boss, when I was showing him rough cuts of the film, he was just sort of like, "Oh, I haven't heard of these films. Are these films available to be licensed?" So the idea was already germinating like in his head as I was making the film, and so he started licensing a lot of films for the first box set, like during that period, which is why the first box set came out the same year as the film. And so, but the film itself came about by accident. Like when I was first, like many of Severin films, there aren't many documentaries we make that start off as feature documentaries. They usually start off as extras that just get out of control. And so, like I'm making one now that is actually, I'm making a documentary. Well, I'll get into it later, I guess. But most of them have started as extras. And in the case of the folk horror one, we were going to be doing a release of Blood on Satan's Claw, and we were going to be just basically replicating the UK disc, like porting over all the, they had just made a whole bunch of new extras for the UK disc, and we were just going to do an American version of that disc. And I said, "Oh, you're not going to add anything? Like, you're not even going to make one new extra?" And David's like, "Well, we've already interviewed everybody from the movie, and there's, like, what else can we do?" I said, "Well, you could just make something just about folk horror in general." And David was like, "Folk horror? What's that?" And I said, "Well, it's like this and this and this." And then he was like, "Great." He's like, "Go make it." And I was like, at that time, I was just an editor at Severin. So my job at Severin at that point was literally just people would give me assignments to edit things, and I would edit them and return them. I had no creative say in what those things were or anything. So this was a suggestion of his that came totally out of the blue, where he's just like, "Okay, go make this extra yourself." And luckily, I guess, I didn't have any experience putting together a film shoot or anything, but I did have experience, because I had done the Miskatonic Institute of Horror Studies, I was always sort of keeping up on who was writing books about what and whose specialty was what. And I was like, well, I probably am best positioned to know who the people are, who are the experts that I would get to speak in a documentary about folk horror,
Mm-hmm.
So I sort of started there and then relied on people that Severin worked with frequently in the UK to do the actual filming, because all of our first interviews were in the UK, because it was originally just going to be focused on the UK folk horror immediately surrounding Blood on Satan's Claw. Like, so all this, like the kind of Unholy Trinity films and everything just immediately in that time period. But then, of course, as soon as I started interviewing people, I was just like, "Oh, this is such a way bigger topic," because I was like, it include, things like Children of the Corn, all these American folk horror films that would, could be considered folk horror. And then when I interviewed people, there was also a real divide when people would give their definition of what folk horror was. There was a real divide between people from England and America would usually define folk horror as something where a stranger comes to a village and all the people in the village are weird and they have some weird belief systems, and it's kind of like this normal civilized outsider who comes into this community of barbarians or something,
Right.
But then when you would interview people from Asia or Europe or other places like this, they would always say that folk horror is where you have a village of people who have this very strong belief system where they're fighting against the evil coming from outside their village.
Yeah.
So it was like this alternate perspective on what folk horror was. And in the European and Asian stuff, there seemed to be much more focus on folkloric fairy tales, folkloric creatures, stuff like this that you wouldn't see in like British folk horror. And after my movie came out, I saw online a lot of debate where a lot of British people were like, "Well, that other stuff isn't real folk horror."
Right.
So there's like a lot of territorialism about like just even the definition or what should be included and stuff. And so that was kind of what I was trying to do with my movie, is just let people talk about what it is to them, because the idea of folk culture, is that it often traverses through communities and changes as it intersects with other communities and stuff. So the idea that people did not agree on the definition, to me, was an important part of the documentary, you know. And so anyway, that was how it started. It was just supposed to be an extra, and then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then eventually David said, well, just instead of trying to cut it down, just keep going.
Yeah.
You know, just make it whatever you want. And because we knew it was going to eventually end up on Blu-ray, because that's Severin's primary business, he didn't care how long it was. You know, he was just like, well, if it's long, people will just pause it and then they'll watch the rest later, you know. I
can't imagine doing that, though, because it is long. It is over 3 hours, but I mean, it flows really smoothly. And so it doesn't feel like it, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, but it also has the chapter headings, you know, so it does have really good kind of way stations where you could pause it and come back to it the next day or something if you wanted to, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and then I lucked out during COVID. One of the few people who lucked out during COVID, where the festivals went online. And so basically, because festivals went online, they also didn't care how long the movies were, you know, because normally when you're playing a festival, if you have a 3-hour movie, they have to think about the fact that you're taking up 2 slots at the theater, you know, that like, oh, we could be playing another movie in this time period. So if we take this movie, we're losing another movie. Whereas when it was online, that was not an issue. You could play, the movies could be as long as you wanted. So I feel like I actually got a lot of festival play for that movie, because all the festivals were online that year. I
actually saw it at Chattanooga that year myself.
Okay, cool. Was it online that year, or did it go?
Online on Chattanooga Film Festival 2021.
Yeah. So that was really interesting because I feel like because of the festivals, it got a lot more attention than it would have otherwise. You know, like otherwise it just would have gone straight to Blu-ray. A lot of people wouldn't have heard about it unless they pay attention to Severin stuff. And so the fact that COVID made everything online meant that the film got a lot more attention than it would have otherwise.
Absolutely.
Now, we're here to talk about the haunted season, but before we get there, you kind of touched on the Miskatonic Institute of Horror Studies. That fascinates me because I really wish that there was something like that when I was. My degrees are in film production and also American media and popular culture. I wish there was a horror studies. How did that come about, the Miskatonic Institute?
Well, basically, part of it is like, just like you said, I always wished that there had been one. But it also started by accident because it was something where I was doing a writers in residence in Winnipeg. And I was like, part of the writers in residence was you had to do some sort of public facing event. You know, you had to do a reading or you had to do some kind of activity. And the owner of the bookstore where I was doing the residency said like, oh, why don't you do something with your horror thing, like your horror interest, but do it for teenagers, because spring break is coming up and all the younger everything is focused on younger kids. There's a million activities of things for younger kids to do, but there's kind of nothing for those kids that are kind of between 12 and 15 or 12 and 16, you know. So I said, oh, okay. So I did this week-long workshop, and I'm really not trained to teach workshops to people. I'm like horrible at it. But so I did this week-long workshop of like horror film criticism for teens. And I had to have some sort of name or some way to advertise it. And I just called it the Miskatonic Institute of Horror Studies, like as a joke.
Because what else are you going to call it?
Right. But then I got asked after that workshop, I got a call from somebody looking for the Miskatonic Institute of Horror Studies because they wanted me to come and do a class at their organization for their teenagers. So I ended up doing a second class with like a bunch of juvenile delinquents who were not into, you know, they wanted to watch the movies, but they didn't want to do any reading or learn anything. But so anyways, that was how it started, was that people just started asking me to do these classes. And so originally it was very focused on teenagers, but then I moved to Montreal and I was running a little micro cinema there. And so I was like, okay, now that I have my own venue, I'm just going to have these classes every week. So we started having them on Wednesdays, but we really weren't getting teenagers because we just didn't have the outreach, you know, to reach teenagers, and we didn't know enough parents of teenagers and stuff. So we started to get a lot of adults that were like, well, can I come to the classes? And at first I was worried, where I was like, well, I don't know if any adult is going to know the same amount about horror as me, so I don't know what they're going to learn from me. But they were really interested in coming, so we just said, okay, we'll open it up to adults. And then after a while, I think after 5 classes or something like that, these scholars and college instructors that in Montreal that were very into horror approached me about collaborating with me to try to help me get more teachers and stuff like that. And so they ended up becoming really important to Miskatonic Montreal growing. They ended up branching off and starting their own organization called Monstrum. So they still have like I think, quarterly academic journal called the Monstrum Journal. And I don't know if they're doing classes anymore, but they were for a while. And I, in the meantime, moved again. I started the London branch, and then I started one in New York and one in LA. And during COVID, a lot of them, didn't survive, but London still goes strong. And London was always the most popular one. There's so many horror scholars in the UK. It's like, you have this like bounty of teachers to pick from, and you also have like a ton of people there who are into really academic approaches to horror and stuff, so the audiences have always been really full and enthusiastic and stuff. And then, so I ran it for 10 years, and but I was always very reliant on volunteer help, because oftentimes I did not live in the cities where these schools were. And so I was like 100% reliant on whoever was my local person on the ground to actually run it. But then after a while, I realized that the way that I wanted to run the school was different from how most of the volunteers wanted to run it. Like a lot of the volunteers were much more interested in an event structure where it's like one class, one night, and you go and that's it. Whereas I always wanted courses, where you have like a long course with many classes. But when you do things that way, you have much smaller audiences. You have like just like that core group of people that want to take a 6-week course in something. Whereas if you do an event structure, you can sell out every time. So, of course, the people on the ground doing it wanted to sell out every time. It was much more appealing to them, and also just more for your morale. It's just nicer having a full room of people, and so it ended up just kind of going more in that event structure. And after 10 years, I realized that I couldn't do what I wanted with it, which was I wanted it to eventually have real academic accreditation and stuff like that. And I was like, this is just not going to happen without a major patron or something for it, So I basically gave it over to the volunteers, So Josh Sacco, who had been running the London branch for a long time, he now owns it. He runs it. It's his baby to do with whatever he wants with. So I sort of retired from it. But I'm still proud of it, so I still have it in my signature and everything like that. But yeah, Josh Sacco runs it now. And he used to run a thing called Cigarette Burns in the UK, which was like basically he would do 16 millimeter repertory screenings at various different venues around town. So he's very experienced with not only horror, but also like doing live events and stuff.
Of course. Yeah.
So let's move on to the haunted season, because that's what we're here to talk about. This is a series with Severin and Shudder, and every year you guys put out a new episode. And this year's episode, you actually directed. Is this your fiction directorial debut?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was like Severin. The series Haunted Season is actually Severin. It's 100% Severin. So it has a deal with Shudder where we premiere them on Shudder, so it obviously has this very strong association with Shudder, but it's a Severin production, like the series as a whole. And because I also work for Severin a lot, that was the context in which I pitched it. So I pitched it to David Gregory at Severin, and he was just like, well, if you want to do that, go ahead. But he's like, I'm not. You have to manage it yourself, So then I pitched it to Sam at Shudder, and he and I had actually worked together years ago. Fangoria. We worked together on the Fangoria website we were kind of the web team back in like 2012 or 2013, something like that. And we had this idea back then where we were like, wouldn't it be great if we could do like an annual ghost story for Christmas and have it premiere on the Fangoria website every year, like on Christmas Eve or something. And the publisher didn't want to go for it. But that idea just stayed on the back burner. And then when I pitched it to Sam, I was like, this is the idea basically that we wanted to do all those years ago. And we're both in positions now where we could potentially do it, you know? So we came up with a plan where we have a 5-year agreement. So we have like the first season is 5 years. Every year it's a different film. The films are supposed to be anywhere from 25 to 50 minutes. So it's a fairly wide range in terms of like how long the films have to be. But the idea is they are supposed to be in the vein of the BBC's Ghost Story for Christmas, you know, so they're supposed to have some element of tradition to them. Some, you know, they're supposed to be period, although again, the period can be anything from like the Middle Ages up into the 1960s, you know. And they are supposed to preserve kind of the downbeat tone of the BBC series, you know, so they're not supposed to be like funny or gory or spectacle driven or anything like that. They're supposed to be kind of just less emphasis on like the big spectacle, you know, and trying
bit of downers.
Kind of bummers, but so we started it with Sean Hogan's To Fire You Come at Last, which I love. I think Sean is a brilliant writer. And then this year, we were for the one this year. It wasn't originally supposed to be me making one. It was supposed to be somebody else, and then they ended up getting one of their features projects kind of greenlit to the next stage of development, and they had to shift gears and focus on that. So I'm hoping they'll still come back, you know, to do their episode because they had already written the script and everything. So it then was like, well, this series has no money, no time. You know, like usually if you're trying to get somebody to do something for a low budget, you have to at least give them time to do it, you know. Right. And we didn't have either of those things. So I basically put myself in as a filler. I was supposed to be like, well, I mean, I guess I'll just do one because, you know, I had this favorite ghost story that I would read every Christmas. I was like, well, you know, I could kind of picture how I would do this. So maybe I should just do it myself. And I just made sure to surround myself with people who knew what they were doing. You know, it's like one of my oldest friends is Kareem Hussein, who's the DOP on the film. And I knew that if I had him with me, I would be okay. You know, like that he pretty much acts as my buffer. You know, he's very experienced and very professional, and people have a lot of respect for him. So I knew that that would rub off on me if I was working on a set with him, that everything would be okay, that he wouldn't let me fail miserably. And so Kareem was a big part of the confidence that I had that I could even do this, you know. And then, but everything about it was new. It was the first time I, you know, wrote a script in a script writing program, and, you know, like worked with actors, and just everything about it, you know, was new. And I had to, you know, rely on friends who were more experienced to like help me navigate, you know, like how do I do some of these things, you know. My friend Jason Lapierre, who is a filmmaker, he's a director he makes all kinds of films, actually. He's made kids films. He's made lots of true crime films and stuff like that. But he helped me a lot with, like, how do I deal with actors? How do I talk to actors? You know, how do I break down the scene so that I can answer any question they might have about it? So he was hugely helpful with that. But yeah, I just feel, and then I also have elements of the film where I actually got other artists, you know, other experimental filmmakers and animators and all these things to work with me on certain things that I wanted to do. And to me, it's like a lot of what people like about the film is their work. You know, it's like the animation, the music, you know, the exterior footage, you know, stuff like this was all things where I got other very experienced artists to basically make that stuff for the movie. So,
and it comes together phenomenally. I mean, the music, the window scene, the acting, just it's it's such a beautiful and tight. I'm a huge fan of the BBC Ghost Stories for Christmas. So when this was announced, I was like, yes, finally we have new downers for Christmas. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us this morning. We are out of time. I know that we could talk to you for another 3 episodes. So anytime you want to come back, please come back. Yeah, this seemed like it was a really short one, but we are on a crunch. But before we go, where can people, are you on the socials or anything? Where can people follow you to find out what you've got coming up?
Well, I have socials on Instagram, Blue Sky, which I believe are just my name, Kier-La Janisse. I have a Facebook that only exists to post things on I have a publishing company called Spectacular Optical, and so I have a Blue Sky also for that, and also for on a Facebook for that. But I barely ever look at the Facebook. But Instagram, I'm fairly frequently on, and Blue Sky. And It's just under my name.
And what is coming up? Is there anything you could talk about that is coming up that we can push for you?
Yeah, the only I mentioned a bit earlier I'm working on a documentary adaptation of the book Killing for Culture.
Ooh.
And so that we licensed, this is like a book that came out in the early 90s. It was very important to me and to a lot of other horror fans that focuses on the history of sort of Mondo films, snuff films, tape trading, death films, faces of death type things, stuff like this. So all very, very grim subject matter, but it just sort of goes into the history of people trading this type of footage. And so we optioned it for a documentary. I was originally, like I was saying, some things we start off as extras and become features. I was making a documentary for the Black Emmanuel box set about snuff films to go with Emmanuel in America. And I got I just slightly into it, and then I pulled it. I realized, David, this is a feature. I'm not gonna, let's just go into it from the beginning as though it's a feature, because that way we can actually film everything more uniformly. Because a lot of times when you start off as an extra, you're filming it with the budget of an extra, which means that, the camera people are all different depending on where the interviewee is located. So everything kind of looks different. I was like, I think we should make a feature out of this. So let's just stop this right now, and then we'll do the interviews in an actual set that looks uniform, So Killing for Culture, I think, will probably be the first documentary Severin's made where it's actually made for the purpose of being a feature with the budget in mind of a feature, and stuff like that. So I'm going to be working on that through the next year.
Is bum fights going to be brought up at all?
It'll probably be brought up, but I mean,
yeah, because that feels like my generation's like Faces of Death type videotape trading thing. I mean,
it got very. I mean, it got so. That's the thing. Like as it went on, it just got so. Just like humanity has failed.
Yeah, looking back, I was like,
be a rough subject.
Looking back, I was like, why did we find that at all entertaining? Jeez, but 14,
Yeah, the whole movie is dealing with that kind of material, and a lot of people being interviewed will probably be people who, like me, watched that kind of stuff as a teenager, and now that we're old, we're kind of like, why did we watch that?
That's thoughts exact.
It'll be an interesting self-reflection.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, great. So we can keep an eye on your socials to find out the progress of that project. And and when that comes out, come on back, because like I said, we could make full episodes out of interviews with you. So we'll come back anytime. And this has been great. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Yeah.
Our theme song is by Restless Spirit, so go check them out. And our artwork is by Chris Fisher, so go check him out. You can check us out on all the socials under Eye on Horror or at ihorror.com, which is the website we all call home. And everybody go and check out the haunted season. The Occupant in the Room is this year's entry. And it's great. It's terrific. So go check it out on Shudder. And we will see you in a couple of weeks. So for me, James J. Edwards.
I'm Jacob Davison.
I'm Jonathan Correia.
I'm Kier-La Janisse.
Keep your eye on horror.